Welcome to Loathsome Things, a horror movie podcast. My name is John, and with me, as always, is my co-host Josh. Josh, how are you doing on this rainy day?
I'm doing well. For the people in the audience, it's Super Bowl Sunday. The Super Bowl hasn't happened yet. We don't know how this amazing Joe Montana-centric game will go, but the world is very excited about Taylor Swift being on an airplane for a really long time.
I mean, it's pretty exciting.
I mean, come on. Is she gonna make it?
So stupid.
And how are you, John?
I'm doing well. It's been a little hectic over here at Casa John, but we're doing like some spring cleaning. I don't know. My son is basically living with us, so we've been having to make some, space for him in the spare bedroom, which we were basically using to store crap.
Yeah.
So that's good. I mean, it's forcing me to get rid of a whole shit ton of stuff in our closet. So that's what we'll be doing after the show, and I can't wait.
Oh, that does sound good.
Nothing says fun like cleaning house.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I do love there's I don't know what it is. I don't know what segment of people you have to be, but there is definitely a segment of people where there's the house and there's the extra room, and that extra room is basically the house closet. And it's really a treat. The house we currently live in does not have a house closet, and so the room that I use as my office kind of has become the de facto house closet. For example, behind me right now is the treadmill that no one uses, and the box of air conditioning filters.
Is that like a fold-up table behind you against the door?
That?
No, I see that's the workout thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's leftover from Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's, the fold-up table that won't go anywhere. There's nowhere, it doesn't go anywhere. Eventually, I'm going to replace it because that is an 8-foot-long folding table, and currently, my computer setup resides on a 6-foot folding table, so just as soon as I clean off this situation and feel like transposing computer equipment, I will upgrade my computer desk to 8 feet wide.
2 extra feet.
What could I possibly do with it all?
You take your car to Alvarez. I don't know where that came from.
The depth, deep inside.
That's so weird.
I'm sure, now that our audience has listened to the depths of what is going on inside the organizational principles in our living situations, John, what movie are we watching today and why?
Well, as we had mentioned in the previous episode when we did Candyman, the redo, sort of, whatever, I'm going to move on. We did that...
Candyman.
Yeah, Candyman. We did that in celebration of Black History Month. So to close out Black History Month, we are not going to go with the racist feature that I originally selected, and will indeed be going for a film from 2001, I believe 2001, by the name of His House, directed 2020. 2001, what the hell am I talking about? Made by Stanley Kubrick. It's called, it's called His House by Remi Weeks. Weeks. I still don't know how to say it.
I think it's Weeks.
Yeah, it's a it's a pretty heavy duty story about 2 South Sudanese refugees who come to England and some horrible shit that happens in I don't know what it is. It's like a council flat that they basically get assigned. Some sort of shitty flat in Essex, and we'll get into it. But it's a great film. I've seen it, of course, several times now. I enjoyed it the first time I saw it, but man, I like it more each time I see it. So it's going to be fun. It'll be fun to talk about. Probably won't be real funny.
No. There's not a lot of humor here.
Not a lot of humor, but it does. I think it does fit pretty well with Black History Month. Although, of course, Black History Month in our case, we're talking about the United States, but it's okay. I think we can deal with a British movie to celebrate Black History Month, because otherwise my selections were going to be silly shit like Blackula, which, don't get me wrong, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we probably should cover Blackula anyway at some point, but
absolutely.
But yeah. And I think this movie, like, it is a British movie, but I think it still applies. It gets some points across.
Sure. I mean, it touches on some heavy stuff. Like I said, we'll get into it.
Yeah. This is Remi Week's first motion picture.
Yeah.
His his first feature film. It doesn't look like he's working on anything else. Like, it didn't have anything in the old pending jar.
Yeah.
So I don't know what he's doing, but this was a pretty big deal. Like, it got a lot of positive response. Mm-hmm. It was really well made. So I don't know what's next for Remi.
Yeah, hopefully he'll make more horror films, because he's good at it, and I guess we'll just see. Yeah, it's really weird. I mean, he really hasn't done a whole heck of a lot. Made a music video, and he directed one episode of some special horror thing that was made for Halloween, and a couple short films, and then this.
Yeah.
So
maybe he just has a really nice non-movie job.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So, yeah, that could be. Who knows?
It could be. This movie stars, and I looked up how to pronounce it because I felt like I wasn't getting it. It's pronounced Shope Diresu.
Oh, thank God you looked that up, because I would have never said Shope.
Yeah, Shope Diresu is, he's been in a bunch of British TV and movies that I've never heard of. Yeah. But some of them look interesting. Like, there's this movie called The Colony, and I was like, oh, I haven't seen anything about that, but it looks good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's great in this, and also Masaku. I also looked up how to Masaku. Yeah, Wunmi Masaku as Rial. She was in Lovecraft Country, and she played the voice of Azzy in Scavenger's Reign. Which, if you haven't seen Scavenger's Reign, you should go watch that, because it's
I have not. Both of them had at least tiny roles in an episode of Black Mirror. Mosaku was also in Loki and Luther. And then Shope or Duresu was also in his Dark Materials. I think he was in a couple episodes of that. So
nice.
I don't know why I did that. Off to a great start.
And of course, yeah, we've got this down. We're good at this. We're good at the recording. We're good at the post-recording part. Anyone that listened to our last episode knows how good of an audio editor I am.
Absolutely nailing everything.
Running on all cylinders. We have Matt Smith in here as Mark. Matt Smith, as you know, is Doctor Who, and also like the Prince of England in The Crown, and also the Prince of Westeros or whatever in the fucking House of the Dragon, and also the Prince of Soho in Last Night in Soho.
Yeah, he's a princely dude. And it's good to see him here. He does a great job. I mean, he gets about as close as you're going to get to humor in this film.
Yeah.
And then also, of course, the film has Javier Botet, who is, whenever you need something creepy looking, they bring in this guy, which I was waiting for it. I finally found an article where they talk about, perhaps it's inappropriate to keep using this guy every single time we need someone that we consider creepy. I'm like, well, why don't you ask him? He's the one taking the roles. But I get the point, though. It was somebody who had the same medical condition. Botet he's a Spanish actor. He has a medical condition that basically the result is, as far as his appearance, is that he's excessively tall and skinny. He has very long fingers, and that lends itself well to, for instance, Mama, where, the creature is a ghost of a mother, who's tormented, and, all they have to do is slap some makeup and a costume on him, and he looks disturbing.
Oh, I had no idea that was going on. I knew that he was Dracula in The Last Voyage of the Demeter and Crooked Man in the Conjuring franchise. I didn't realize, I thought he was just like the other Andy Serkis, where if you need a guy to do like cool body acting, you call him. I didn't realize he was, it was like that. That kind of sucks, but, Hollywood, yay.
Yeah, I mean, he and Guillermo del Toro have a pretty good relationship. I mean, he was the executive producer, del Toro, on Mama, and of course he directed Crimson Peak, and Botet was the creature in that. Very similar in appearance to the one in Mama, but I digress.
Yeah, he was also, one of his earliest appearances was in the original movie Wreck, that cool high-rise Spanish zombie disaster movie.
He was in all three Wrecks, actually.
Oh, shit!
I know.
I had no idea.
Yeah, he was in Alien Covenant, The Revenant, and, don't forget, he was in Sheeple.
Oh, yeah.
Nice. Which is actually good, oddly enough. With a name that stupid, it's actually a pretty good movie.
Now, after you've mentioned it, I cannot tell you the number of times that the cover of the film Satanic Hispanics has come up, like, while I'm just looking for other things. I'll just be, like, on Just Watch, and I'll look at things, and then, oh, there it is, Satanic Hispanics. It's right there.
And it looked, I mean, of course, when I heard the name, I was like, that's just terrifying. Yeah. But I saw the trailer, and the trailer fucking smokes, man. The movie looks like a lot of fun.
Maybe we'll have to pull that one up one of these days.
That's a see it first movie.
Yeah, definitely. All right, buckle up, folks, because this one is depressing. All right.
Yeah.
Bol, Rial, and Nyagak crammed themselves into a refugee boat at night. There's way too many people in the boat. They can't all fit. It's a motorboat. It's night. It's in the open ocean. The Rial leans down and tells Nyagak, "I'll protect you." But then the boat breaks down, and we see everyone swimming in the open ocean, and we see Nyagak yelling, "Mama!" as she slowly, probably drowns. Skip forward, we find out a year later, Bol and Rial are living in a English refugee detention facility. Today is the day that they're getting released on bail. There are conditions where they must make weekly reports. They are going to be given £74 a week, and they can't get jobs or in any way supplement that income. And they're going to be assigned a house that they cannot move from or live anywhere else other than. And if they break any of these conditions or anything else, they will be sent back to South Sudan, where people are getting massacred. Hooray for the way that works.
Yeah.
They are dropped off, very unpleasantly dropped off, in front of a set of what can only be called English hooligan row homes. Matt Smith is there. His character is Mark. He calls it a palace. It's bigger than his own house, he says, and as he opens the front door, it falls off of the hinges. They walk through the house. Everything is broken. The lights don't work. This doesn't work. The stove doesn't work. Everything's terrible. Everything's covered in roaches. Everything looks run down and trash and garbage and just stinky. But then again, it's England, so maybe it doesn't smell because they don't have the problems that we have here. But if that house was anywhere near the general American central southwest, it would be a real stinky place. Who knows what things smell like in England? Who can say?
Oh, everything in England smells great.
Yeah, it's just boiled water everywhere. He gives them a care package with, like, sponges and shit in it. He says, he gives them kind of good advice, but also kind of like microaggression, racism advice to make it easy for people to get along with them. And then at night, Bol starts to hear things crawling around and humming in the walls. And in kind of a fugue state of like post-traumatic stress renovation, he starts peeling all of the wallpaper off of the walls because things are creeping behind them.
Nice.
Yeah.
He's basically frenzied in his peelingification.
Yeah.
Meantime, Rial wakes up and we see her, she starts cleaning up and stuff, and immediately she hears a little voice behind her saying, "Mommy, Mama." She's opens up a cabinet door, and in her mind, I assume, she sees a whole group of like refugees basically pressing up against the bars of like a cage of some sort of a cage. Bol goes out, buys a hammer, and to add to his what will basically growing collection of tools that he's using to supposedly fix up the place. Anyways, Rial leaves the house. She's on her way. She's looking for some place called Church Street. She gets bugged by some kid who's like, "Oh, man, hello, excuse me, man, hello." And then she just pisses off, and then she gets stuck in this weird urban hell maze of like cinder block walls that are painted white, and keeps walking back and forth in front of the same gate with a barking dog, and it's very claustrophobic. It's a really great shot because she's outside and you can see, some skyscrapers in the background, and yet she's just completely trapped in this thing. It was really cool. So she's kind of lost, and then eventually she finds a group of black children playing in a kind of a paved clearing, and they're complete douchebags. They're just like, "Hello, governor. Hello, bloody hell, fuck off." And then of course she goes up to ask them directions, and they're just like giving her a hard time, and "No, I think it's this way. Yeah, it's this way, love. That's right. Fuck off." And then then she's like, "Whatever." And then as she's going to leave, to follow their shitty directions, one of them says, "Go back to fucking Africa, man," which is very strange. And then they're mocking her accent, which it's like they all have African accents as well, which I just thought was kind of weird, but I guess not as thick as hers. So great. She's at some sort of a clinic. She's like giving blood, and she's talking to the lady and telling her she's basically telling her about how she got the scars on her face. She's got scarification markings. She starts talking about how they, quote, lost their girl crossing the sea. And then after that whole interaction, she goes home, and she looks out the window and sees some random chav female peeing in their barren garden. And here's some girl go, "Hey, I think someone's living there." And the other girl goes, "Whatever," and like walks away. It's great. A bunch of fruit that she's just purchased falls to the ground, and one of the pieces of fruit rolls basically by her towards this giant gaping hole in the wall that her husband has made, Bol. She hears a creepy voice, and there's some creepy business going on. Bol comes home. It's after dark. She's got dinner waiting for him on the floor, which is, kind of like their setup. She's got, like a cloth of some sort, and he's late, and he's basically being a douche and says, "Well, let's use the table next time." And they eat their dinner, and he's kind of hopeful about getting a job, and drops a little line in there about starting a new family, which creates a huge amount of tension. He mentions that he's feeling restless, which, I mean, why wouldn't you? He's got no life whatsoever here in England. Rial tells a story to him that I think her mother, she had said, had relayed to her when she was a little girl, about a creature called a night witch or an apeth. Opeth.
Yeah. Yeah. Otep.
Now this creature is it basically, when somebody builds a home, the apeth is in the home, ushering in the dead to come in and consume this man who builds this house. And she tells Bol that the apeth is in their house and that it wants them to leave to repay their debt because of their dead child Nagayak or something like that, or Niagak or something. Fuck, I forget. I completely ruined it. Anyways,
it's okay.
Yeah. So in order to get their kid back, they need to leave or whatever she says essentially. And his Bol is like, "She's gone, my love. She's gone." He gets kind of raises his voice like, "She's dead." Like, get over it. Of course, he's not over it either. He's just being a tool. He denies that there's a witch, and she says that she knows he's lying because she can see it in his eyes, and she already knows that it's already there, the witch. So we see Bol peeling more paper. We hear creaky door noises, that kind of stuff. He feels like a voice, like breath on the back of his neck, and hears a female voice. He starts seeing ghosts, really cool looking ghosts. There's a really great jump scare with one of the ghosts. This candlelight that he has, because the wiring in the house is all jacked, gets blown out. And we see this rocking figure, which we assume is Niagak, rocking back and forth with this totally fucking badass mask on.
Hell yes.
And then she gets up and attacks him with this enormous knife. And he's like surrounded by like voices and Yagak business going on. And he completely runs outside to escape the situation. And he looks up and sees his creepy neighbor staring down at him and gives her this ridiculous, like, fake ass smile. That was pretty funny. Like, he's just like, "Hey, nothing strange happening here." Rial sees that he's super alarmed, and she says, "You saw it." He finds the baby doll that belonged to Nyagak. He freaks out, and he wants to now destroy everything that they've brought with them because he thinks these items are cursed and marked. He even goes so far as to very aggressively tear her necklace off.
Yeah.
And then torches all the, Nyagak's clothing and just basically torches all her stuff.
Everything that they brought with them from Sudan, like everything that they had left from home.
Yeah, because that's what the ghost is after. It's after all their shit.
Yeah.
It's not after them. They might as well have just burned them. But then the movie would be over and really depressing. So instead, he heads out to this really sanitary-looking white shopping center. There's some, I'm assuming it's like a loss prevention guy that's basically just eyes locked on him. He's there to pick out some clothes, to do like job interviews, and he has no idea what to buy. So he looks up on the wall, and there's one of those stupid giant photos of like a family, like, "Hey, we're excited!" And so he picks this polo shirt and some pants, like the first pants off the rack, basically. He gets home, he's like digging in the wall, tearing wiring out or whatever. He hurts his hand on something. Gets the place rewired, kind of. And then he sees Rial. She's talking to something at the kitchen table. There's nothing there. At dinner, he says they're going to find her something to do in the community so she can go out and interact instead of just sitting in the house going crazy like both of them are doing.
Yeah.
She wants to tell him what the thing was telling her. He doesn't want to hear it. She tells him anyway that it can get Nyagak back, and that she needs to be afraid of Bol because he's dangerous towards her. But he's very defiant. And then we see him, he's at the table by himself eating. The camera pulls back. Suddenly we get this amazing shot of him basically on a broken out chunk of kitchen, wall and floor, and him sitting at the table floating on the sea with like orange light, like sunlight or whatever. It's very foggy, and he starts seeing ghosts popping up in the fog and corpses floating in the water. He falls into the water, and then these ghosts are all rising up and coming towards him, and then suddenly he wakes up sitting in bed freaking the fuck out, as would anyone.
Right. Yeah.
Great scene.
Oh man, it really is good. All of that like ocean ghost stuff is like, wow. There's also this great stuff. I think it's even the cover where it's like him sitting at the table and the walls are gone around him.
Yeah, it's really well done.
Yeah. So at this point he just starts tearing down the walls all the way. Before he was being a little bit like, oh, I'll make a little hole here, and oh, I'll just take off the there's a scene that I glazed over where there's just a pane of like wallpaper that like Icky slides off of the wall, and he was like, oh, well then I must take all the wallpaper off. So now he starts really getting after it, because, I mean, the walls are literally full of ghosts. So then the next day he goes to visit Mark and ask for a new house. All of the guys in the office are, like, shooting him little dirty glances. One of the guys says, it's bigger than my house, and, also, Bol is acting pretty crazy. He has a glass of orange juice that he crushes in his hand. And this ends up ending in a stalemate where then later Mark comes to visit the house to do basically a wellness check. He brings some other little shit dude with him. And they're like, well, this is bad. And Bol is like, no, it's fine. Just give me a break. And they're willing to. But before they leave, Rial tells them about the Apeth. And Mark warns them to get their act together. And then after they leave, the Rial and Bol are talking together, and she calls the agents poor and lazy and bored. And I was like, ooh, I feel called out. Later, Rial says she's going to leave, and he's gone all the way crazy. He's just gone ballistic at this point. So she says that she's gonna leave whether or not he does, and he won't let her, so he proceeds to lock her in the house. We see him going around and breaking the handles off of the doors so that they are secured shut, and she now cannot leave, so she is now trapped in the house with him while he goes crazy. Next, he lights a candle and communes with the Apeth. It tells him he stole his life and it wants him to kill himself. He declines, and at this point, after a little bit of nonsense, Rial ends up stabbing Bol in the leg with a screwdriver so that she can escape. She does escape, and then encounters, very soon after leaving the front door, encounters a group of women from her hometown who are hanging out in a schoolhouse. They welcome her, they celebrate her arrival, and she sits on the floor with them as they comfort her. And then she realizes that they are just dreams and asks them where her daughter is, and they all just look at each other and then look back at her and say, who? And then we get a flashback, and this is going to carry over into John's part. Rial hid in a cupboard, we come to find out, in the schoolhouse that we now see her in. We're flashing back to Sudan. Bol comes and finds her where she was hiding in the cupboard in the schoolhouse. When she comes out of the cupboard because she hears his voice, she looks around, and all of the other women in the schoolhouse have been massacred around her while she was hiding in the cupboard. It's super fucked. We then follow Bol and Rial as the two of them hide on rooftops and sneak through the night as the war ravages the landscape and the people around them. There's really upsetting shots of people on fire, and it's just all bad.
It's pretty heavy stuff, but I mean, it's a pretty fair portrayal of what these people and countless others have had to deal with.
And it's happening right now.
Yeah. South Sudan is still a mess. So it basically switches today, and now I guess you're basically supposed to understand that this is more of a flashback scene than a fantasy scene, because it kind of goes back and forth, which I think
Yeah.
it handled really well. They arrive at a spot where a bunch of people are being loaded onto a bus to get, taken to port. I assume, you assume they're getting taken. Well, they're taken away to be refugees. They're not allowed to get on the bus because they don't have a child with them. So because there's no more room. So they basically just grab a little girl and take her on the bus with them, leaving the mother running behind the bus screaming for her daughter, and the daughter, Niagak, screaming for her mother. And suddenly you realize they don't have a child. They basically abducted one as their ticket out of the country. And as we know, the child ends up drowning. So, yeah, pretty heavy reveal. Pretty brilliant piece of writing, I thought. Was very clever. The scene is absolutely heartbreaking. I'm really glad that I was watching it academically, because the first time I watched the film, it fucked me up pretty bad.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, out of all of the movies that we've watched, this is the one where you're most likely to cry.
Yeah, it's heavy.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you're cool with horror movies, but you have a hard time with really intense emotional family stuff, this movie is gonna fuck you up. But it's really good.
Yeah.
So, anyways, and you assume that, this little girl's mother is going to get shot or whatever. I mean, her fate is not great. So now they're on a boat. It's rough seas. It's at night. They're all packed on this horrible fucking boat. It capsizes. Niagak drowns.
Yeah.
Essentially is sacrificed for their survival. Essentially, we go back. We see that Rial is now back in the schoolroom with the old woman that she's kind of had been communicating with in the earlier scenes. The creature, you hear its voice basically promising her, if she severs Bol's flesh with a knife, this huge knife that the old woman hands her, then Niagak will be returned. So, I mean, yeah, it sounds like a shit deal, like, because it's coming from a witch. But, whatever. So she wakes up. She's out in the rain. Well, when she comes to, essentially, she's laying outside of the flat in the rain. She's come back. Bol picks her up, brings her inside. They're sitting she's sitting on one side of the table. He's sitting on the other. The knife is on the counter. She's eyeballing the knife. She hears the little girl's voice pleading for her mother. Gets up and heads to the sink and kind of turns her back to Bol, and you can hear him grab the knife. She turns around. He's now slashed his arm open. He has a huge gaping slash in his arm. He's, and the intent is he's going to summon Apeth to save the little girl. He blames himself for everything that's happened, and he tells his wife that he sees all the ghosts from the boat, all the people from the boat and from home, all the victims of this nightmare, which of course he is in no way responsible for, though he is responsible in some sense for the death of the little girl, sort of. Mm-hmm. They were trying to get her on the boat anyway, but so he feels incredibly guilty, and he tells her to go away because Apeth is coming. She leaves the room, and the room, meanwhile, starts shaking and rattling and coming apart. Obviously, this thing is showing up. The lights start to flicker. Apeth crawls out of a hole that basically busts open in the floor, and there's like black soil or sandy soil. Its arm comes out, pulls itself up out of the hole, and stands up and is huge, like extremely tall and skinny and very creepy looking, with kind of glowing pupils. It's really cool looking. It climbs on top of Bol and starts digging its fingers into his arm wound, basically like entering his body, and it's really intense. Rial is muffling her cries in the other room. It's rough. Nyagak appears, takes Rial's hand, and she's now kind of seeing back to the scenes before. She's, returning Nyagak home, saying goodbye to the ladies because she's going home. And then, as Apeth is about to devour Bol, all of a sudden Rial comes up from behind him with that huge kitchen knife and cuts its throat. And it basically falls to the ground, bleeding out. Cut from that scene to Mark, the Matt Smith character, and his co-workers. They're at the flat now. The walls have been patched up. There's light inside there. It still looks rough, but it looks much, much improved from where it was before. Bol and Rial are just kind of standing there hand in hand. It's kind of like, everything's fine now. Yeah. And they've got this guy taking photos of the patched walls, and Mark says, "You seem well. Is there still a witch?" And Bol says, "Rial killed it." And then she says to Bol, "I think I might paint this room red." And then Mark asks them about the rats, and there's this whole thing about, Bol, Bol says that, well, I was just being overdramatic.
Yeah.
That's and that was pretty awesome. And then he talks to Rial, and he says, that I think he says it to Mark, that the ghosts never leave, that they live with you, and that he could face himself now because he let them in. I guess he's just telling Rial that.
Yeah.
And because those guys have pissed off now. And Rial says, "This is our home." So she's now accepted that they are going to start this new life there. They are freed of this burden, of guilt that they felt for the death of this child. Bol adds, "We are happy here." Then the council folks leaves. Yeah, I guess they were still there. Yeah, it's all good. Yeah. Rial and Bol see Nyagak basically standing in front of them. She is surrounded by a bunch of the ghosts of the others, which, they just look like the actual people. They don't look, like ghouls anymore. Then we see a shot of Rial and Bol. They are also surrounded by, I guess you'd say, happy ghosts, content ghosts.
The ghosts of a variety of refugees.
Yeah. She reaches over, Rial reaches over, takes Bol's hand, and that's the end of the film. Very nice. Yes, I like this.
Yes. Yeah, that
heavy.
The scene with where the Apeth is digging his hand into, it's like he's trying to put on Bol's hand like a glove, and he's just having the best time. He's just shoving his hand in there. He's like, he's just having so much fun. I was like, wow, that is very intense. And you can see his fingers moving around trying to stretch through the flesh. It's top-notch stuff.
Yeah, very effective.
Yeah. So you want to go ahead, we rate the movie and then talk about why?
Yeah, I gave this one a 5 across the board. I loved it. The first few times I watched it, I enjoyed it, but I don't think it impacted me as hard. Maybe, after repeated viewings, I was able to kind of just accept it for what it was and just enjoy it, for what it was. And whatever the reason, or maybe it just hit me that way lately, but I really enjoyed it. So I gave it a 5 out of 5 Loathsome Things. How about yourself?
Nice. I gave it a 4.2 out of 5 Loathsome Things. Mm-hmm. The places where it lost me was so I guess I'll talk about the bad things first. The ending lost me because I don't get it. I don't get her cutting its neck. I don't get who the women were to her, because at a certain point it seemed like the women were a manifestation of the Apeth trying to get her to do the thing, but then she communed with them in making her decision to kill the Apeth, and it didn't make sense to me. The whole thing with the little girl holding her hand and then no. I don't get what all was going there. I didn't see, like, while I liked elements of that final scene, I didn't get, like, the whole thing with painting it red. There's this whole thing where Matt Smith is like, are you crazy? And you can't tell if he's talking about, are they crazy? Or if he's, like, trying to, like, jam with them about painting the walls red. And then, while the visually powerful, that the scene with them being surrounded by refugees and talking about letting the ghosts in, what the fuck did that even mean? It felt completely disconnected from the rest of it. It just, I feel like he was trying too hard to get the things that he wanted to be in the movie, but not all of them actually connected together. Like, I get why there was the monster there, but honestly, the monster was awesome, and the stuff leading up to the monster was awesome. It just didn't feel like it actually belonged in this movie. It felt like it, in some ways, detracted from what the movie was trying to do, and there's just a lot of things in there that didn't connect. There is, similar to Candyman, you know, we've got this idea of, like, the society around you is also a source of danger, and that never really manifested here. Maybe because it's British instead of American, but there are these, you know, there's, like, white people acting weird towards them a lot, and even other black people, like British black people, acting weird towards them because they're refugees or foreign or whatever. But even there's this scene where, like, he gets lured into a church where a guy's like, yeah, I've got something for you. And then it just turns out that guy actually had a care package full of goods, and he, like, hung out with them and sang songs about soccer players. So it was just a little bit off tone. Like, some things didn't land for me, but overall it was, like, super top-notch stuff. So I had a few points where it didn't stick the landing, but overall I thought the direction was solid, the camera work was fantastic, the acting was great, the story overall was super impactful. I love it. I fully recommend it. It's great. It's just there were a few things blocking me from getting to all the way up into the 5.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I can't really argue with any of that stuff. I think for me, I guess I kind of viewed it as almost like a fable. So, you know, like a children's story that you probably shouldn't be showing children, but, you know, because it was, I mean, just the way that the creature is presented is very fantasy oriented, and to the point where, you know, the story really wants you to believe that they're seeing all these things and that they're, you know, that these things are actually happening to them, but it's almost as if they're happening to them just on this fantasy plane that the entire story is being told because it's a fable, and, you know, which for me gives it a lot more license to jump around with weird shit, like why is Rial suddenly in this building with, you know, these women who I also thought, well, is this a manifestation of Apeth? Is it, you know, I mean, sometimes it felt like maybe those were scenes that he envisaged in his mind, but he either intentionally left, you know, the entire, like, idea of what was behind it open, or he was actually confused and didn't know how to portray it properly. None of that stuff really bothered me. If it did, I probably would have rated it somewhere around where you did. But after I was done and you know, watching it as, you know, and just sat up with it, I was like, you know, I just really enjoy this movie and I really appreciate it. You know, it's funny though, because I probably every other time I watched it, I would have rated it lower. You know, I bet I wouldn't have even gotten to a 4 the first time I saw it, just because I really just wanted something that was a horror movie, and I didn't, you know, just the whole fucking, like, oh, there's this thing in the walls, and, you know, all, and then let's take this really intense human interest story, but let's dumb it down with horror. But, you know, after seeing it a few times, I just don't give a shit. Like, I just feel like it works. And this is a director that, considering the relatively limited amount of professional work that he's released, he certainly has something really great in him. My 5 out of 5, in no way would I rank it as high as some of the critics that are saying it's like, that it was like the horror movie of the year or one of the best modern horror movies ever made. That's bullshit. I'm sorry, but I don't see it anywhere near that. But for our purposes, and I think for me it's a 5 out of 5. So
nice. Yeah. One of the things that I think that it did possibly better than any other horror movie is because horror pivots on either reduction of or lack of agency, and he created these two characters that lack almost all agency, and then took even a little bit more away from them. So like most of the characters are like, oh no, I'm helpless to defeat this monster. But these people are refugees in a foreign country. They were reduced to like some of the lowest means of human survival. Like they had to go through horrible things to try to survive. Then they're put in detention, then they're put in these horrible housing situation. They're surrounded by people. They're in culture shock as well as like post-trauma from what they've witnessed, and they have no control over their lives. And then motherfucking husband guy goes crazy, and now she's just stuck with, on top of everything else and no support coming from anywhere, she's just stuck even further down into no control over anything. I guess maybe that's why it was her cutting the ape's neck, is because that was like, maybe it was her curse on him. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, it's hard to say, because he's the one who makes the call with the little girl, essentially. I mean, he just grabs her. She certainly doesn't say no. So I guess they're complicit in that respect. And, but yeah, I mean, that's a good point. It was like, I mean, you could almost kind of say that her sneaking up behind it just kind of reeked of like a Hollywood trick, but then at the same time, I guess the whole purpose of the film ultimately is about assimilation, and how do these refugees either continue their lives or build a whole new life in a completely foreign place. And I know that was a huge part of what this film is about, if not the main thrust of what this film is about. So, I mean, in that respect, I think it was handled really well, because the two of ultimately the husband, who acts like a complete dick for a huge part of the movie, suddenly realizes, he acknowledges that his grief is dominating his entire existence, and he's willing to make this huge sacrifice for her, and in honor of this decision that he had made earlier. And then the wife comes in and does what she does, and I guess that's kind of a way of both of them reclaiming or claiming finally ownership and having some sort of agency, but basically saying, as she literally says at the end, this is our home.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that works. I mean, it. Again, the first time I saw the movie, the way he acts really pissed me off. And I guess, in repeated viewings, I know the boundaries of how he acts. And so I'm a little bit more willing to accept, okay, I understand that what he's doing is completely inappropriate. But really, if you think about it, he's a fucking monster, the way he treats her. I mean, he's bordering on abusing her. He's... if anything, I mean, he's certainly being emotionally abusive. And also, by the way, her performance in this movie is fucking spot on. She is amazing.
God. Yeah.
I mean, in a movie full of great performances, she is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yeah, she, oh man, she can just lock eyes and just stare right through you. She's fantastic. And they have great chemistry together.
Yeah,
they
do.
Fantastic on all of that. They definitely carried this movie. If they weren't competent, this movie would be garbage.
Yeah, this movie, some of it is pretty thin, to be honest, and it certainly could have gone the wrong way very easily. You're right.
Yeah. Yeah. And there were even a few moments, I think maybe it was a flaw of directing. There were a few moments where, like, the tone of their acting didn't really meet the situation.
Right.
Like that scene where she's, like, laid out dinner and she's staring at him, but it turns out that she was, like, trying to figure out whether or not he was a liar, but she was also, like, coming at him with the big, like, come hither energy. That felt kind of off and weird, but it's fine. It's good. I really liked that scene right at first in the schoolhouse where they're comforting her. It brought me back to Midsummer, and that scene where, like, all of the women are doing, like, the her breathing to make her feel better. I was like, oh man, it's like that. I love that.
Like, one of my takes on that scene is that she's in this room with, like, the spirits of her people, or the spirits of the feminine, force that is at the heart of their culture, that she's, like, with the spirits of elders. But at the same time, I don't know, it's weird. Like, by the end of the movie, it's like, is the ghost even, or the witch even evil, or was it there to basically as a tool to allow them to get beyond their grief? It's kind of odd when you think of it like that, because it would be a hell of a long way to go for that.
Great monster though, the Apeth with his fold. He's got like old puppy nipples, and he's like maggot flesh. He's so good.
Puppy nipples.
Yeah.
That's the sequel, by the way. It's called Puppy Nipples. Whee!
So that is a 9.2 out of 10 Loathsome Things. And that, let's see, puts it directly behind... I don't know if I feel good about that. It puts it directly behind The Void by Jeremy Gillespie and Stephen Kostansky. So it misses our top 10 by 1.
That's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the Void was a lot better. Well, I enjoyed The Void a lot more, but it's also played for fun,
Yeah,
This movie is not fun.
The Void is a much more loathsome thing of a movie.
Yes, that's true.
We've got a few minutes if you want to talk about other things that you've been watching or doing or hanging out with.
I'm listening. I'm right in the middle, I'm in the first third of the Alan Moore, the comic book writer who wrote The Watchmen and V for Vendetta and From Hell. This is a novel that he wrote called Jerusalem, which is a semi-autobiographical novel about Northampton, the city that he grew up. Well, no, it's actually technically a town. But anyways, it's a 61-hour audio book. Jesus. Yeah, it's like over 1,000 pages apparently. But
nice.
It's incredibly well written, and I was so, like, getting into it, but then some other books that I wanted to read popped up on my, as being available at the library. So I quickly blasted out this one called Mexican Gothic by an author named Silvia Moreno Garcia. Kind of this, it's a Mexican Gothic tale essentially about crazy shit. Can't say much about it without giving it away, but that was a really good book. And I got through some Thomas Pynchon and then started one of his, which one was it? Mason and Dixon, and I was just like, no, not ready for this. I'm going to stick with Alan Moore. How about you?
So let's go ahead and just say spoiler alert. On Cobweb, I finally got around to watching that, and I just wanted to say real quick, because you mentioned that you didn't enjoy it. Why wasn't the monster a fucking spider?
And how the fuck did a child turn into that? Just because she was...
Yeah.
Just from the pain she endured? That didn't make any fucking sense at all.
Yeah, fuck that movie. It was real good up to a point. Like, I loved the people that they cast in it. It was, like, the mystery of it, the ickiness. It was all so fucking good. And then they were just like... And also, we have this weird monster that... Have you ever seen Netflix try to redo an anime in live action? It's like one of those. It was... Fuck that movie. Jesus Christ.
Lame. It was really lame. I mean, way to waste a killer performance from Anthony Starr and Lizzie Kaplan. You know, they both did a great job in that movie, and it was just ruined.
Yeah,
that movie pissed me off.
Yeah, I'm mad now. I was like, wow, that is just... Oh, it's because it had a spider in its hair? Fuck that! No!
It was so lame. It was a cool idea. It was just really badly executed. And it was executed really well until it wasn't, and then it was just terrible.
Total disappointment. All right, so... moving forward, March is one of those magical months where we get to release 3 episodes. So we've been talking it over, we've been thinking about it. We're gonna do a 3-peat again. I think the last one we did was Carrie, or was it
Body Snatchers?
Body Snatchers. Okay, so that was almost a year ago. So we're doing it again, y'all. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe by the 3rd we won't be up to it anymore. I'm not sure, but we're kicking it off 2 weeks from today with Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring from 1960. And then we're going to follow that up with Wes Craven's 1972 video nasty The Last House on the Left. And then, if we have any stomach left in us, we might also get to the 2009 remake of Last House on the Left.
I think I've seen that, actually. It's very intense. Like,
which one?
Extreme. Well, I never saw the Craven one. I'm generally not a huge fan of Wes Craven. Maybe my favorite movie of his is People Under the Stairs. So
yes.
I'm not one to ask. I mean, the dude made Shocker. That movie fucking sucks so bad. And I don't like Scream. I don't like any of those movies, and he made them so he can lick my taint. But I've heard that Last House on the Left is really intense, and the remake is fucking gruesome. I mean, it's not a great film, but it's like cringy. Very cringy.
Ooh, good.
Yeah.
I have not seen any of these 3. I know that they are rape revenge movies, so here we go.
Mm-hmm. I don't know anything about The Virgin Spring except that Bergman made it, and I just love that we're going from Ingmar Bergman to Wes Craven.
Yeah.
It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. I mean, I've been wanting to do an Ingmar Bergman movie since we started. I was like, oh man, there's so many great ones out there. I wasn't expecting this to be our first Ingmar Bergman movie, but I think it's gonna be good. Or possibly we've made a horrible mistake. You find out in 2 weeks whether or not we've made a horrible mistake.
Oh my God. Oh man. And thank you for listening to our butchering of Black History Month. We had nothing of value to add, so we just talked about some movies and, tried to show our own stupid level of respect for Black America. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that's worth. Nothing, probably.
And pay attention to what's going on in Sudan right now, because they are currently committing genocide. This movie came out in response to basically a genocide and civil war that had recently ended, and it has since started up again, where they're finding entire villages massacred because those people are different.
Yeah, it's really awful. Oh, man. But thanks for tuning in, folks. You don't really tune into a podcast, but we are old and grew up watching shows that tell you what. Anyways, thanks for listening to the show, and as always, we're sorry that you have to deal with APATH. Jesus Christ.
Nice.
That was so bad.
I liked it. I liked that.
Stupid.